Let's move to the AFC North now. My division, the Pittsburgh Steelers division, in my opinion, the second best in the NFL. Spoiler alert to the NFC North. AFC North going to put up right there, dead last, right where they belong, the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are going to go 7-10 this year. So obviously the logic for believing in Cleveland this year would be, hey, I mean, the quarterback play was terrible a year ago. You had to go through a bunch of guys, Deshaun, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. You had to go through a bunch of guys. You eventually land on Joe Flacco off his couch. You have a little bit of success with him, but he throws a bunch of interceptions, and those chickens come home to roost against the Houston Texans in their playoff loss, and the Browns get blown off the field. Listen, it's still a fantastic defense led by a great, obviously a phenomenal player, Myles Garrett, and a great defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz. So listen, I have no questions about Cleveland on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think anybody should. But offensively, I do. So a lot of folks are talking about how, Deshaun Watson's back, but it's another injury he's coming off of. Deshaun has not been good. I said Aaron hasn't been good since 2021. Deshaun hasn't been good since 2020. Since we were smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, that's the last time Deshaun Watson resembled anything close to, forget an elite quarterback, just a competent quarterback. So I think that's going to factor for the Browns. But also what we're forgetting, Nick Chubb's not going to be there for the first part of the season. Nick Chubb's coming off a terrible, a gruesome injury that he suffered against my Steelers last year in week 2 on Monday Night Football. So what will Nick Chubb's health be? Nick Chubb has an injury history. The Browns receiving corps is fine. Amari Cooper's still very productive. David Njoku, who's a Pro Bowl level guy. But the Browns offensive line suffered some injuries. Like that's, I think, going to hurt them even more. And I simply don't believe in Deshaun Watson. I think Stefanski's an awesome coach. I really do. I wish he were in a better situation. But the Browns are not well run in terms of their ownership. Andrew Berry's done a good job as their GM at putting as much talent as they can around the albatross of a contract that's Deshaun Watson. I don't believe in this team whatsoever. And then at the third place spot, yes, preserving the non-losing season streak for Mike Tomlin, but missing the playoffs. I am objective, my Pittsburgh Steelers. So listen, they're like a better version of Cleveland. That's how I see them this year. I think the roster is excellent. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers roster maybe more than most. Maybe that's just me being biased or being a homer, whatever. I think this offensive line's got progressively better. The Steelers, to their credit, have really, really invested in that O-line the last couple of drafts. I think it's going to continuously get better. Fatanu, the kid they took out of, took in the first round to add to this offensive line, really liked that pick by my Steelers. George Pickens, when he gets the ball in his hands, he is special. No other two ways around it. You got Calvin Austin, who's productive more as a returner than as a receiver. Deontay Johnson being on, I don't think will hurt this team that much. He, at times, the effort was a question at times with him. I love the Roman Wilson pick out of Michigan. I think he's going to bolster that receiving group. Najee Harris is Najee Harris. He's productive. He's good. Jaylen Warren, who's hurt to start the season, that concerns me. He'll get in the lineup. I think be more of a valuable commodity, valuable piece to that Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Defensively, it's a Mike Tomlin defense, so why in the heck should I have questions? You got TJ Watt, in my mind, the best defensive player in football. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick, one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in the NFL. And you just added from your biggest rival, the Baltimore Ravens, Patrick Queen. And you drafted a right linebacker in this year's draft. So the Steelers defense, for as great as it was a year ago, just got better. You have Joey Porter Jr. coming off a very, very successful rookie campaign, and I expect him to continuously get better. But there's still limitations at quarterback. And again, adding Arthur Smith, I thought was a really good get. There was a lot of teams, a quarter of the NFL wanted to hire Arthur Smith as their OC this past offseason. He's not a good head coach. He's a really good OC. But Russell Wilson is what Russell Wilson is. With Sean Payton, he was good, put up good numbers, 26 touchdowns, 9 picks, but there wasn't a whole lot of substance to those numbers, not a ton of shots down the field. Russell's declined as an athlete. Listen, to me, the Steelers should start Russ throughout the entire season. Again, knock on wood that he doesn't get hurt. Preserve Justin Fields. Keep Fields next year as either your backup or a trade asset and go get Dak Prescott. I think that's absolutely on the table. Frankly, I think that's what's going to happen. But my Steelers, Tomlin keeps the streak alive, but I am objective. The Steelers are not a playoff team in what's a stacked AFC. The number 2 team in the AFC North, you're like, oh, who is it? Is it Bengals? Is it Ravens? It is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens will go 10-7. They will make the playoffs. You see that little green playoffs right there. The Ravens will make the playoffs this season. So here's where I'm at with them. This Baltimore Ravens team, I think, did get worse this offseason. They lost Mike McDonald who became the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. They lost, obviously, Patrick Queen. They lost Kyle Van Noy. They lost Jadeveon Clowney. That said, they still have some playmakers on that side of the ball. You still got Kyle Hamilton. You still got guys like Roquan Smith, highly productive. As a matter of fact, elite players on the defensive side of the ball. And again, outside of Cincinnati, the entire identity of this division is hard, tough-nosed, defensive football. The Steelers are, the Browns are, and gosh darn it, the Ravens certainly are in a major way. And then offensively, Lamar Jackson, I think, is the third best quarterback in football. He's the reigning league MVP. I still have questions about their weapons. Yes, they added Derrick Henry, and that does help. But A, Derrick Henry's getting 30, and running backs don't get better once they hit that age. And B, the Ravens running game is already good. So will Derrick Henry make it better? Sure, but not that much better. And I'm curious what their identity is going to be this season, because the narrative out of the AFC Championship game was, oh, they threw the ball too much against the Chiefs. Now they're kind of going back to what they were, which is a run-first team, which I thought was what they were trying to get out of. Listen, I think this game against Kansas City, which I will predict on Wednesday's show to start the year in Arrowhead, is gigantic for this team from a momentum's perspective. History shows when you lose to a team in the playoffs, they go on to win the Super Bowl, and you play them to start the next season and you lose, you oftentimes miss the playoffs. I don't think that's to be the case with the Ravens. They're too talented of a roster, too well coached, too well quarterbacked. The Ravens will be at number 2 in the AFC North. And then finally at number 1, that leaves the obvious. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. I got them going 12-5, obviously winning the division. I think the Bengals are going to be really good this year. It all obviously hinges on Joe Burrow. It hinges on Joe Burrow and his health, because when he is out there, he's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. I think he's the second best quarterback in the NFL, obviously to Mahomes, and he's the only guy currently playing who has beaten Patrick in a playoff game, and did so obviously a few years ago at Arrowhead Stadium. I'm assuming Jamar Chase is going to be back sooner rather than later. I would not be shocked if a deal is done before opening day for the Bengals against the Patriots on Sunday. But this offensive skill position core, yes, they lost Joe Mixon. It's still really good. You still have Jamar Chase. You still have T. Higgins. You still got a good tight end unit. And Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow. He's awesome. He's the second best QB in the league to Patrick Mahomes. Defensively, again, there's always question about the Bengals every year, but they've got a great defensive coordinator in Lou Morono. They're going to be good on that side of the ball, especially we consider the fact that they play a Deshaun Watson or whoever quarterbacked Browns team twice a year, and a Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields quarterback team twice a year as well. I think the Bengals have a great year, go 12-5. I could see them maybe getting off to a slow start like they always do early in the season, but picking it back up. Again, knock on wood for Burrow. I think he'll be out there for the Bengals over the course of the season, and Cincinnati will win the AFC North. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.